everybody. Welcome to the Route Consultant Weekly webinar for the waste industry. My name is Josh Gregory. I'm the Vice President of Education here at Route Consultant. If you've never worked with us before, our team ran one of the largest FedEx operations in the country and has had over a decade of experience valuing, selling, and consulting on these types of businesses. And really, the goal of these webinars is to help all of you understand the opportunity that comes with this space, to ask questions, to learn, and find the best way that if you do decide to enter the space, to really accelerate your journey into the industry and help you really be successful as soon as you possibly can. And whether you're here live or you're watching on YouTube later, you can submit questions to us. If you're here live, you can send it in the Q&A, or if you're watching later, feel free to email or call us. We're happy to help wherever you are in this journey. Now, for today, what we want to talk about is, there are actually a variety of different facilities that you have to move in and out of in this industry. And we're talking about both the ones that you own and the ones that you don't. We want to talk through what you need for your own facilities to be successful and what you need to understand about the ones that you're going into and that you're transporting waste to and from. So we've brought Tommy Turbyville back on with his decades of experience in this industry. So Tommy, why don't you jump on, say hello, and we'll get started.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Tommy. So before we start talking about your own facilities, let's talk about disposal sites. So what are the different types that you encounter in this space?
Yeah, so you have to take your waste somewhere. And so much of that is just based on where your operation is, because not every location is same, the proximity to where you're collecting the waste. But there's really four different types or areas that you'll take to. The first one we'll talk about is the actual landfill. So that's where you go to the space, you're dumping it, on earth, and they're covering it up. And there's two different types of landfills. One called a municipal solid waste, or MSW, and that is where what the majority of the waste is. Whether you throw something out in your home or throw away something at a business, those are, that's where the majority of the waste ends up going. And then the other is what's called a construction and demolition site, or C&D. And that is strictly for construction type material. It's lumber, it's bricks, it's blocks, it's those types of things from a construction site. And the reason there are two different ones is just because the requirements at a municipal landfill and a C&D site to operate and to get permitted are drastically different because of what goes in there. And so at both of those sites, if you are going there, one of the things you have to be aware of is there's a good chance you're going to be going over waste that has been dumped previously. And depending on the site, depends on, how well they maintain the roads and the roadways and how you do that. So, there are certain hazards that are going to run into going to landfills as a result of that.
Between those two landfills, do you see big differences in disposal fees, or is it similar at the different types?
No, it is the municipal solid waste are going to be much more expensive. They charge per weight, where most of the C&D sites are going to charge by cubic yard, but there is a significant difference between the two.
Got it. Okay. So if you have the choice, is there ever a scenario where you have a choice, or is it typically, a landfill is going to control a wide enough area, regardless of type, that you're not going to see both in the same area?
No, you'll have both in the same area. Of course, you and I both live in the Nashville area, and there are both. There are municipal solid waste and there's C&D sites. And so it is, depending on the travel distance, many times it's much more feasible to go to the C&D site, for containers you'd have at a construction site versus municipal solid waste, just because of the cost savings.
Got it. Okay. Do municipalities ever require you to use theirs?
No, you really don't, unless if you have a municipal contract, they may dictate where you go, but it's probably going to be more because they have some type of deal, for the waste that comes out of, this town or that town.
Got it. Okay. So those are landfills. Those are kind of the two types you see. Are there other disposal sites that people go to?
Yeah, the other that's very common is a transfer station. And what that is, because with landfill requirements, there's not landfills in every city and every town. They're much more regional by nature now. And so to get the waste there, they'll set up transfer stations. And what that is a location where you go out, typically dump on some type of concrete floor, and they have a way to push it and get it into trucks that are, large containers that are carried by 18 wheelers to the actual landfill disposal site. Uh, and so in those situations, the costs are going to be more than the landfill because you have the transportation, there's the labor cost to get it loaded, those types of things. But it could still be worth it if it's close enough and it's not, if it cuts off, hours a day of your travel time, it makes it worth it to be able to do that. And there, the big thing you got to be aware of is that you're not running over. Most of them do a pretty good job of getting the waste out of there, or it would just pile up. But
Mhm.
you've got to understand you're going to be, broken glass, nails, things of that sort that don't uh, get, get moved easily with just a bucket loader to push it into a large trailer.
Got it. Okay. So it's still some of the same types of problems you can run into at a landfill where you just have to be careful. It sounds like in general, that's the case for all waste or a lot of waste areas is that tires and worrying about making sure that you don't have anything pop from driving over those types of materials like glass is kind of a constant challenge.
Yeah, I think probably the big difference is in a transfer station, you don't want them backing up to where someone else has just dumped if they hadn't moved it. And so they don't go back too far. Just be aware that's going to be there. Where in a landfill, some of it could be covered up and it may just be on the roadway that could cause some tire damage.
Got it. Okay.
And then there's one other which is not common. They're in different parts of the country, primarily coastal areas. You tend to see them more, and that's a combustion site. And that the setup is very similar to a transfer station where you're dumping it, but it is where they incinerate the waste, and they do that either to just reduce the volume drastically to make it, down to an ash, and or they use it as a energy plant where they burn the waste to create energy. And so those are around, but the issues that you're going to see at a transfer station are more in these sites. But again, they're not. There's not a whole lot of people that have that opportunity to go to those.
Got it. I guess another one that we haven't really talked about, but if you get into recycling at all, are they different facilities?
Yeah, many of some landfills have a MRF, material recovery facility, is what they call them.
Mhm.
That would have that, but most of those are separated, and then there's a whole lot of recycling that is in different locations. So you may um, a different facility strictly there where you'll go, and some of them will allow you to dump recycled material commingled. Some of them require it not to be mixed. So it really depends on the type of site. There are certain places that may just do cardboard or may just do aluminum, those types of things. So yeah, that's an option, but you've got to make sure how you're collecting it fits the requirements of those types of sites.
Yeah, a whole different level of requirements and things to be aware of when it comes to recycling. I was just wondering if they're at the same facility. So I think that helps kind of think through that. Okay, so those are the different disposal sites. There are different areas depending on the part of the country, the type of region you're in that you might have access to, and knowing your options may mean that sometimes there are options where you can take it to one and save a little bit of money, or save a lot of money if we're talking a transfer station and the hours and the fuel and the payroll that you save. Um, Besides those facilities, I think the really important side of the facility equation is thinking about what you would need for your own operation. So what are the types of things that you need to have in your own facility?
Yeah, so So it all varies depending on the lines of business and the size of your operation. But there are a few things that you have to have, and you have to make sure you accommodate for. One is you've got to have some type of admin space. You know, you've got to have a place where invoicing is done, payroll is done, those types of items, HR records, those types of things, where you have a space for that. The other is just truck parking. You've got to find a place to park your trucks because, you know, in the collection business, you're going to have them. You've got to have a place to do them. And then the other, if you get into the commercial or the industrial and construction, is a space for the containers, your container inventory, stuff that's not sitting out at customers. Uh, and then the last of things you have to have is you have to have a place to clean.
Hmm.
They're garbage trucks. They get dirty. And so, you know, and that's your rolling billboard, you know, that you have. So you want to keep them clean. And so you've got to have a place to clean the trucks, and then also the containers, you know, to keep them clean, because they're not a one and done. So you'll reuse those things.
Is it hard to clean those? Like, how long does it take to clean one of these trucks?
Well, it all depends on your frequency. I mean, you know, some of them don't get, for example, a residential truck, for the most part, it's either side load or rear load. So it's just, you know, anything you would get, the debris from the, you know, road, just the dirtiness that you get from traveling up and down streets, unlike a front loader or a commercial, where trash is dumped over, stuff is going to leak out, spill out, it's going to get all over the cab, the windows, those types of things. That almost requires some type of daily something just to keep it from, you know, permanent staining. And then on the you know, the industrial side, it's primarily, if they go, you know, if they're doing construction and they're in construction site, it's just getting the junk off the wheels, because a lot of those may be going in, you know, dirty, muddy areas, and just making sure that you know, it doesn't look like it stayed in a mud pit.
Got it. Okay. Um, do you find that it's hard? Like, will any facility allow you to clean, a trash truck, or is that something that not everybody's super excited about?
Not everybody is super excited about it, but you can find places that will allow you to go and do that. There are also services. I've had services come in places before where they come in and actually do it. They'll come in 3 days a week or something, and come in the middle of the night and, you know, wash the truck. So there are services that do that as well.
Okay, so there's options, but I think no matter what, that has to be a part of, your trucks aren't gonna, one, they're gonna look really bad, and two, you can start to have problems if you allow that side of the equation to slip, where you're not, doing a good job of frequently washing these vehicles. But you're right, not everybody's gonna allow you to do it, so just kind of that is a critical part of planning how you're gonna structure this business. So, you talked about a lot of these different things. How do you see people doing it effectively? Like, what does a good facility look like?
Well, the one that's the most um common, and the one that you see the most, is where everything's on one, you know, at one facility, where you're able to do everything at one facility. That gives you a little more control as well. And so, but it could require, you know, a few acres for you to be able to do that. And so, you know, the location of where that is, you may have to get more out of the area, or make sure you're in an industrial zoned area to be able to do that. But you know, a place where you can have your offices, a place for the guys to come park the trucks, containers, you know, and if you decide to do maintenance on your trucks and your containers, we can touch base on that in a minute. But you know, that is common. But you also see folks, you know, offices in their house. You know, I mean, it's just an office. It's not that you need that much space. You know, again, depending on your size, you could have one person that's doing most of your administrative work. you know, if you grow where you need that. So the office space is not that much, but so in that, you know, I've seen it outsourced. You know, people pretty much completely outsource everything, their accounting, their payroll, their HR, all of that. And I've seen them just have little small offices away from everything else where they go. So there's a lot of options as it relates to the admin space. When you start getting to the truck parking, it is more of a challenge to be able to park two or three, you know, waste trucks at another business's location. They just tend to not like the looks of it. And in the summer, you know, right now we're in the heat of summer in most places. You know, regardless of how well you clean them, there's going to be an odor of some sort. I like to tell folks that just smells like money, but you know, there is an odor, and so being able to find a place that will lease you or allow you a corner of a business is tough. But there are places, again, to park them. Again, you just need space.
Yeah.
So I've seen people, you know, have places outside a rural area, a undeveloped, you know, corner lot of something where people are just able to park their trucks. You know, I would tell you that is one thing that you would probably want to put a fence around just to keep people getting access. So you want to make sure you've got that. But I've seen that. And then the other with containers, I've seen several options on containers. If it's not on your property, uh, you know, people that have a place to put them because, you know, that could change. For example, in the industrial and construction side, you're going to have more inventory on your lot in the winter months than you are in the summer months, just because that's when the activity goes. But I've also seen people in the industrial and construction side have locations strategically placed throughout their geographic coverage area. And that way they do that. So they go dump a container because those will move in and out. It's not like they go back to the same place every time where they have it. Hey, you can drop one if you're servicing an area that's 40 miles away. You know, you have that where you can grab one and get it there quicker instead of coming all the way back to the central facility. But on the commercial, the front loader containers, you typically see them in one location. You don't ever see them strategically placed because those are not moved with the same truck that actually does the service. So
Got
you
it.
keep those at a central location. But again, I have seen people that have several different, instead of getting, you know, one facility with a few acres, I've seen them have a place where their trucks are parked, a place where they store containers, and a different place where they do their admin work. So there are options, you know, as you look at that, but you do have to make sure you're preparing for all those different spaces.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, that if you're starting a fresh business, like from the ground up, that's going to be one of the biggest challenges you got to think through and establish early. Whereas if you're buying an existing business, there should be some kind of facility already that you can work out, whether that's the right facility for you or not. There's at least that option there where you could look at purchasing it or leasing it from that existing owner and use that as an option instead of having to start fresh. Now, can you do maintenance on your fleet, on your containers at the same area, or do you find people take those somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, the fleet maintenance I've seen from, yeah, again, being all under one roof. The thing you want to make sure on that, if you do your own maintenance, is you can't do everything just out in the yard. You've got to have some type of covering. You've got to protect your folks from the weather and the elements. And so, but I have seen people add that, you know, just add a metal building, or they just rent a metal building somewhere. The challenge with that is if it's not in close proximity to where the trucks park, then you've got the issue of, you know, you've got the extra cost of shuttling that truck there, in the evening and getting it back the next morning, and how do you move that around? But I have seen that. I mean, I've even seen places that have started getting into the maintenance, just build a lean to a building. They have an existing facility and they just put a cover over it, because most of those places are not, it doesn't have HVAC, and doesn't have heat and air. And they're like, hey, this is going to keep the rain off of them, and I can take fans in the summer, and heaters to blow on them, in the winter. And so I have seen people go to that extent. And again, if it works. Again, it works. On container maintenance, it's a little different, because you're going to have, equipment associated with that. You're going to have welders and torches and things of that sort. You can still do it under a lean-to, but again, even if you're doing your maintenance, there's certain things you've got to make sure you're protecting so they don't disappear on you overnight. By the folks coming through. So, on those types of scenarios, it's really similar, but they're also separate. You see very few places where they'll do the truck maintenance and the container maintenance in the same space. They typically have, designated areas for that. Again, just because it's different type of equipment that you need to work on both. It's not the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I think all of those are really important considerations, and kind of deciding where your resources fit, what you can do. And, as you're thinking through the facility, if you want to do maintenance at your facility, it's really important to think through how much your drivers and mechanics will enjoy that lean-to that you've added on. So, even if it works, it can lead to, your drivers deciding that they would rather take any other job rather than try to survive in the 105-degree heat we've had with one fan on them. And so there's things like that you got to think through, and you've got choices here around your facilities, what you include, what you don't, what you outsource, what you don't. And so I think a lot of what people will do, and as they're kind of planning their facilities, is think through what resources they have now, what is the best fit for their current business strategy. And then as you're looking at outsourcing and adding people into the equation, we can help you find those right outsourced people that you want to bring in and help your business improve. And beyond that, I think it's always going to be a matter of looking at, if you're buying an existing business, what's there? Is it good enough, or do I have to go find my own option? But Tommy, I really appreciate you kind of talking through that. For a lot of people, especially if you're coming from the FedEx or Amazon world, most of them don't have any kind of real estate, any kind of offices outside of maybe just, a home office with a computer. So I think these are really important considerations for people to understand and kind of see a different side of what they might need as they're starting up in this business. And also just understanding, what are the buildings you're moving in and out of? What are the considerations? How can I save money? What are things I should be aware of? So I think all of those are really important. And I think we kind of hit what I wanted to out of this today, Tommy. So really appreciate your time here. For everybody who may be on or watching later, just a couple of reminders. One, wherever you are in this journey, whether you're buying one or starting fresh, if you have questions about the waste industry, how to optimize an existing business, how to find the right one, we're here to help. We can help you wherever you are in the journey, or if you're already a contractor, we can help walk you through and be successful to optimize your existing business. Other than that, there's a few ways that few opportunities coming up to engage with us in person. We do regular new investor summits where you can watch a digital course and then come meet us in person. Normally those are always in Nashville, but next month we're actually going to have one tied to our expo, which our expo is a giant free event for contractors across the country, across a variety of industries. And so if you're really looking to learn more, that's the day to do it. We'll have a full day before the expo to really invest in you and help you learn about the space you're interested in. And then the expo will continue over the weekend with food, drink, sessions to really help you network, learn, and figure out if this is the right way for you to move forward. That expo is in Dallas the first week of August, and the new investor summit happens just before. So hopefully we will see you all there. Other than that, Tommy, thank you so much for being here, and we will see you all in the next webinar.